This time on the Q Division podcast, we open the case of 1974's The Man with the Golden Gun.
This episode, Chels is going to execute a perfect corkscrew jump.
Gavin's going to push a button with his butt.
And which is more titular, a golden gun or a third nipple?
All that and more on the Q Division.
Hello, agents. Welcome to another episode of the Q Division. I'm Gavin, and I've seen all the James Bond movies.
I'm Chels, and I've seen 10 and a TV special. The Q Division's top secret mission is to take a deeper look at the history and impact of the James Bond films and other media through a queer lens. Speaking of, the Q Division is a proud member of the Glitterjaw Queer Podcast Collective. You can find out more about Glitterjaw and a roster of shows that run the gamut of queer media at glitterjaw.com.
And boy, are we really using the gamut. Beautiful, beautiful, by the way. Sorry.
I am shocked I was able to do that in, so clean.
One breath, no edits. Ugh, so good, Chels. But this episode specifically, in order to track down the best, we needed the best, so we activated a highly capable agent. He is a film composer, a musician, and a deeply knowledgeable Bond fan. Michael Llewelyn Barker, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon.
Hello. Yeah, you are our second actual British citizen. So James Bond is in your blood. You're given a card at birth that says you have to be a Bond fan. So we welcome you. We're just casuals in comparison to you. But I'm so excited to have you here, and I think it's so funny because you are currently set to come on for a later episode and possibly some bonus episodes as well. But I'm so happy that we were able to bring you in for what is considered maybe one of the worst James Bond theme songs.
Yeah, well, we can speak about that when we come to it, because I potentially have a controversial opinion on
Ooh.
it. But
I mean,
you know,
as a huge Ab-Fab fan, because once again, queer, I can't hate Lulu. Also huge Eurovision fan. I can't hate Lulu. I don't blame her, but her full-throated defense of the song over the years has been really funny to me, because it's just you can relax a little bit, Lulu.
I think her performance of it is, there's nothing wrong with it. It's really good. No. She's a great singer, and she put her heart into it. It's not the best. So all I could say is, I agree that it's not the best, but I also don't think it's the worst, because I think Mr. White and Miss Keys potentially take that.
I also have a hot take on that one, because I also don't hate that one, but I know I'm in the minority. I'm well aware I'm in the minority. Yeah. So, but anyways, Michael, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you so much for letting us activate you as an agent. Why don't you tell us your background with James Bond, by the way?
I guess Bond was John Barry's James Bond music was the first music that I can really remember hearing and really connecting with me. So I get there's a feeling deep down that I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now if it wasn't for James Bond. I think you're right what you were saying when you introduced me, that it's very much in our blood, and we are supposed, as a British person, we are supposed to like James Bond. And I remember I was probably very young, maybe about 5 or 6, and I was out walking with my dad. I can remember this quite vividly, actually, which is quite bizarre, because but I can, we were out walking, and we were walking through the woods, and for some reason I was talking about something, and he said, "Oh, I think you'd like James Bond," and then when we got home, by chance, Octopussy was on, and I did feel a connection with it. And then a couple of weeks later was the first time that The Living Daylights was ever shown on British TV. And they also had after that there was a 30 years of James Bond documentary. This is giving away my age now, but so there was the 30 years of James Bond documentary after that, which I also watched. And as like I say, I would have been 6.
I must have been 14 years old, something like that. And, the only movies we'd seen were kind of war pictures or sort of drawing room comedies or westerns. And here was something that just was right up to date and really terrific. It was fabulous. But then, that's not news. I mean, people all over the world felt exactly the same thing. And that's the reason why, we're 30 years down the road.
It's just something that always did connect with me, and I know that there's definitely been periods where I've not listened to any James Bond music and I've not watched any films, but it's something that's always been there in my life, and I always enjoy talking to people about it, basically, which is why I'm here.
That's sort of fascinating as well, too, because I think there is something to that, too, of the fact that there is a deep history to it. I've mentioned on the show before, my introduction to James Bond was my dad buying me the box set of all the Roger Moore ones specifically. So Roger Moore is my James Bond. And I know a lot of people don't love the jokey attitude but like, to me, like Sean Connery is sort of the embodiment of James Bond, but to me, Roger Moore is my ideal James Bond. And I think
he is also very hot, so I understand this.
He does look great. The rocket tan suit like no other.
Mhm.
And I think that when my introduction to James Bond was the idea that like, oh, there was stuff before this. There used to be we have a TV channel called TBS and TNT, and they used to do November Bond movies, and they would do like all these sort of specials in between where they would look back and they would talk to some of the actors and whatnot. And I think this like idea that there was so much deep lore to this thing was what really attracted me. So it's always interesting to hear that, like, yeah, that's something else that attracts other people, because I do think it also repulses some people. Like, one of our guests a couple episodes ago was saying that like James Bond movies make him feel dumb. And I think that's part of it, is like, besides the fact that they're awfully convoluted for the most part too. But I think the lore kind of keeps people away, which is even funnier because one of the great things about the Eon James Bond movies is half the time they don't care about the lore, depending on, what film you're watching or whatnot. But I'm that's so fascinating to me that you like kind of from a young age recognized, through this 30th anniversary special, like, oh, there's so much depth to this thing. And that kind of drew you in, as well as a familial connection to it as well, too. Fascinating. Tell us about composing, though. Tell us about being a musician and especially working in the film medium.
As a young person, I sort of played in rock and roll bands and all that sort of stuff, as you do, with, because it's what everybody does, and it's a bit of fun, and it seems like you're the sort of your way out of the sort of. I mean, I come from a medium-sized city in the north of England where there's not a great deal of opportunity or excitement. So, being in a rock and roll band is a sort of it seems like a way out of that. And I think again, goes back to my love for John Barry. Also, I mean, the other big thing is Vangelis's Blade Runner score, which has always been a huge thing for me. So I always thought, when I'm too old to be jumping around and all this sort of stuff, I'll do what I actually always wanted to do, which was make films. And I think going back to that documentary, the 30 years of James Bond, I think that was certainly my first ever insight into the process of making films, and I'm sure that planted the seeds that is what I actually wanted to be involved in. And when I'm working on a film, I always come at it as the point of view as a filmmaker, rather than obviously my job has been the composer and I'm there to write music, but first and foremost, I'm making a film, and the important thing to be doing is serving that story, and making the film as good as it can be.
How did you like? What was your, not to turn this into a whole interview show, but like, what was the first thing that you worked on that got you, sort of involved in the film industry?
I left my hometown and went to university to study music as a mature student. Actually, I was 25. Well, yeah,
so mature, so old. My God,
yeah, I know. I mean,
it
sounds
just ancient.
ridiculous saying that now. Yeah,
Your brain was fully developed at that point. Look
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, I know. And actually, that's something that I would always recommend to people. Actually, now having experienced that, maybe you don't need to go to university when you're 18 or anything. Do it when you feel like it. But that's a different conversation. But I went to study music, but not really. The way that I thought of it was sort of as a kind of thinking holiday, where I had 3 years to do something I really enjoy doing, but not have to worry about other things. And during that time, I can sort of think about what I want to do later. Um,
I
and
love
it
that.
happened to be that the guy that ran the film music module, which began in the third year of the degree that I was doing, is a guy called Francois Evans. He also took the music tech part of it, like engineering and experimental stuff and all of that. And I got talking to him, and like the same as me, I mean, he was from a much more classical background than me. But the first thing that he ever loved was John Barry. He said to me, I wanted to be a spy. And then he realized he was too much of a coward, so he became a composer.
I literally was telling you how I'm like doctor mandated not to drink currently. And so, yeah, that was my thought earlier today, too. It was like, I could never be a spy. I'd like follow doctor's orders specifically.
I mean, once again, I drink Pedialyte from a martini glass. That is me. Put me as a spy.
You're taking care of yourself.
And so, yeah, so I was talking to him and I was telling him, I'd love to do film music. And he said, well, in the third year, come and do the module, and I did. And that's when I scored the first three films I ever did. They were all animations in collaboration with the animation department. Some of them were quite John Barry-ish. And and I got to do it with one of the pieces. We didn't record it properly, but we had a workshop and we did it with professional orchestra, which is, it's the first time I've ever done that. And it was a real life-changing moment for me because, it was over. And you think, I want more of that. That's the sort of thing I want to be doing all the time. And obviously, unless he's 10 years ago now, the path to getting there is totally unclear, is it? You've got no idea how you'll ever. I love that experience. I want to do it again, but how am I going to achieve that? And you don't know. So now I sit here and I'm doing that kind of thing fairly regularly, so that's obviously, it feels to me like a sign that I'm doing something right, that I'm on the right path.
I absolutely love that. And I think Chels can agree with this because Chels is also in post-production. She's been an educator before too. So actually you probably get it from a different, but because like everybody likes music. So they, of course, when they watch a movie, they recognize your contribution. As an editor, our contributions are not always recognized. So I usually like the moment I live for, and it sounds awfully kind of vain, and I don't mean it to, but is like the text I get from somebody that's like, oh, I saw your name in the credits. And that's that's my like, oh, I had an orchestra play my music moment for me. Like the first time.
Did you tell them thank you for sitting through the credits? Because
Yes,
I've done that before.
I got a lot of the first thing I ever had on TV that had my credit in it. The credits move awfully quickly because it's TV.
Yeah,
they want to
it's
get
TV.
to the next.
They're like, get out of here.
Yeah. And I got a lot of like, it went by really fast, and I'm like, yes. That's how it works.
And on the streamers, they don't even bother showing them at all.
Exactly. No, just skip to whatever the next thing is. Thank you, streamers. Jeez.
The way I have tried to disable that on every streamer, by the way.
Same. Yeah. There are some that don't let you because they are monsters.
I know. It's a lot of work.
All right, Chels, before we do get into the episode, I also like to check in with you because I know it is your first time seeing these movies.
Yes.
How did you feel about The Man with the Golden Gun?
It is so difficult because Roger Moore is like a great actor, and I love watching him. Christopher Lee, I love him. I think he's great in the movie. This is somehow so many yikes moments, but also like kind of boring.
Yeah.
That's like the biggest crime, is being boring to me.
This is the first one I really paying attention to it this time, my thought was like one of the beautiful things about Bond movies is they're such travelogues. They're showing people things that they maybe would have never seen before in their life and places that they might never get a chance to go. This movie fails that in almost every.
Yeah.
I was like, you're not making Hong Kong look good. You're certainly not making Thailand look beautiful. Like what are you doing here? You're not making me want to see and learn more about these places.
No, and yet the idea of the movie, like the core idea for the story, I think is a solid idea.
Yeah.
I just don't think the execution was all there. And then, of course, it's a lot sleazier towards the women, which was like, yeah.
Yeah.
That was rough to stomach sometimes.
Michael, do you remember the first time you saw this particular movie? I know that's probably because I certainly do not remember the first time I saw The Man with the Golden Gun.
I don't think so. I remember getting my dad to. I do remember getting my dad to spray paint a toy gun for me gold, but
I love that.
I don't.
Yeah, that's I think the takeaway from this particular movie is the golden gun, the titular golden gun, but
the one that you all use in the Nintendo 64 game.
Exactly. One shot kill, baby.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the book then. If we're going to dive into the history, The Man with the Golden Gun is the 12th and final novel in Ian Fleming's original Bond series, and it's the 13th book altogether. Originally published on April 1st, jokes, 1965, about 8 months after the death of Fleming himself. The book, as it stands, is actually only Fleming's first pass, with only partial editing completed before Fleming died.
Oh, no.
The publisher, Jonathan Cape, originally consulted author and Bond expert Kingsley Amis, who would then write the first Bond continuation novel, Colonel Sun, under the pseudonym Robert Markham, on some edits on the book, but eventually decided to publish as is. They just threw those edits out. And because of this, the book lacks a bit of that polish and a lot of the details that Fleming was known for. The story follows James Bond recently back in England after having traveled to Russia as an amnesiac, believing he was a Japanese fisherman. Great, Ian. Great. But surprise, the Russians have brainwashed Bond into trying to kill M with a cyanide gun. However, that plot is quickly foiled and Bond is deprogrammed and sent off on a new mission to prove himself once more. M tasked Bond with going to Jamaica to take out Francisco Scaramanga, a Cuban assassin who has already killed several agents with a gold-plated Colt 45 revolver that fires silver-jacketed gold-cored dum-dum bullets. The adventure also involves Felix Leiter having rejoined the espionage game and Bond's former assistant, Mary Goodnight. The book is, in my personal opinion, fine at best. It does lack those touches mentioned before, but it also moves at an exciting clip without having to stop down action to turn into a travelogue or food review book, which is a lot of the times what happens in an Ian Fleming novel. My favorite part of the book happens at the very end when Bond turns down a knighthood because he jokes that he doesn't want to have to pay more at hotels and restaurants. It's like 120 pages. It's barely a novel. I understand being respectful over somebody has died. I do not understand being like, but let's not change a word of it. Like,
definitely change a few words of it. Like, beef it up, clean it up a little bit. Like, the editor in me and the, like, previous academic professor is just like, no, fix it. It's okay. It's not disrespectful. He wouldn't want it out like that.
yeah, that's what I thought too. Like, that was my thought process is I was like, but like he, like, because he's known for such detail, because he's known for such a specific style of writing, why put out the version that he himself wouldn't have put out?
Yeah.
I digress.
Imagine putting out your first pass edit, Gavin.
No, don't say
Absolutely not.
Yeah, that's the word. Yeah, could you actually, the very first thing that you lay down, Michael, could you like send that out and just be fine
Perfect.
with it? The first piece of
Fine.
music, first pass.
No edits.
Well, to be honest, I often find that my first ideas are the best. But
And that's what makes you such a good agent.
it's the other people that make the changes.
Yeah, it's true.
Right.
It's true. There is such a thing as getting noted to death, but in this case, he had already been dead. So, was that bad? Was that wrong?
For more on editing notes, listen to Morgan's Female Gaze Editors series. It's my favorite
Yes.
thing.
It's been very good so far, definitely. And I'm not just saying that because I was involved.
Thanks.
In terms of in terms of production on the movie, production of The Man with the Golden Gun was greenlit by United Artists while Live and Let Die was still in production, as the dailies of Roger Moore as Bond convinced them that he was right for the role to continue on. Filming was set to take place in the Middle East, but after the fallout of the Yom Kippur War, the setting was changed to Thailand and Hong Kong as primary locations, based on a suggestion of production designer Peter Merton after he saw some pictures of Phuket Bay in a magazine, which I love that he's just like flipping through a magazine. He's like, let's go here. Also, while scouting possible locations in Hong Kong, Albert Broccoli saw the wreckage of the former ship, the RMS Queen Elizabeth, and thought it would be the perfect location base for the, quote, Far East operations of MI6.
I did like that.
Yeah, it's maybe my favorite.
My favorite detail, maybe.
Yeah, I don't love the production design in this movie, and we'll get to it in a bit. But I think the Queen Elizabeth set is very cool looking. And also very funny because all of the doors have to be like slightly diagonal and everything on it.
It's one of my notes is that I know that the production design is one of those things that people point at as one of the real negatives of it. But I really love that Queen Elizabeth set. I think it's phenomenal.
It's beautiful. It genuinely is.
Beautiful details.
Guy Hamilton returned to the director's chair for his fourth and final Bond film, and Tom Mankiewicz once again was tapped to write the script. After turning in a first draft in 1973, one in which Scaramanga is made out to be the ultimate super villainous version of Bond, he found himself at odds with Hamilton. Claiming that he was feeling tapped out on Bond, the producers brought in Richard Maybaum, once again, into the fold, having worked on the 6 previous Eon Bond films. Maybaum based his work on Mankiewicz's draft, but downplayed much of the evil Bond parts of Scaramanga, instead introducing the 1973 oil crisis and the solar power plot, which was beefed up by research into solar power provided by Broccoli's stepson, Michael G. Wilson. And this is the beginning of Michael G. Wilson's contribution to the Bond series, which over the next couple films you'll really see elevated and until literally just the most recent Amazon deal.
He could use some help in the scientific end, and I have some scientific background, and the solar agitator was the sort of MacGuffin that we used. And I did some research on that for him.
Mankiewicz did, however, return to do rewrites during the shooting of the film. Maybaum reportedly felt the improvs and the rewriting on the set ruined the movie. These girls, they're fighting. They're no longer happy to be working together, Maybaum and Mankiewicz.
No longer RuPaul's best friends race.
Exactly. Another inspiration point, much like blaxploitation was used for Live and Let Die, were kung fu movies such as Enter the Dragon, which were increasingly becoming popular in the 1970s. And these were not just popular in America, they were also very popular in Britain as well, too. And I think that's a sort of important thing because blaxploitation was basically specifically an American thing. So it was really an attempt to really push the American audience. But they really thought in making this more kung fu driven, even though Roger Moore was never going to do kung fu, that this would then also beef up the UK audience. That, not that Live and Let Die didn't do well, but it didn't, this was like, we need to sort of recapture that British pound as well. Christopher Lee was cast as Scaramanga after Jack Palance turned down the role. Lee is actually the cousin of Bond author Ian Fleming, and in fact, Fleming had wanted Lee to play Dr. No. Lee was no stranger to race makeup, having played Asian in early Hammer films. Yikes. I've seen some of those. Yikes. But according to Lee, Fleming was forgetful and forgot to suggest that he wanted him to play Dr. No to Broccoli and Saltzman before they had already cast Joseph Wiseman.
Forgetful is like code for drunk.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, mate. Didn't do it. Lee had also had a background in the special forces during World War II and leading a life much more akin to Bond than Fleming actually ever had. He was famously contracted as a Nazi hunter after the war and once recommended to Peter Jackson the proper way one reacts to getting stabbed from behind on the Lord of the Rings films.
Of course, it was my job as director to talk to Christopher Lee and to explain to him what I wanted. So I started to go into this long explanation about what sort of sound he should make when he got stabbed.
I seem to recall that I did say to Peter, have you any idea of what kind of noise happens when somebody is stabbed in the back? And I said, well, because I do.
Oh, yeah. You see, it's not, I like that.
It's Because the breath's driven out of your body.
He proceeded to sort of talk about some very clandestine part of World War II.
He used to be in the British Secret Service, whatever they were called, the OSS.
He seemed to have expert knowledge of exactly the sort of noise that they make, and so I just sort of didn't push the subject any further. I just said, well, you obviously know what to do, Christopher, so I'm sure you'll do it great, and he did.
I love that. Good for you, Christopher Lee.
Yeah, just hunting Nazis. It's always morally correct to hunt a Nazi.
Always.
Because of the on-location shooting, Lee had to turn down the role of the specialist in Ken Russell's version of The Who's Tommy, a role that eventually went to Jack Nicholson. I only put that in because
Interesting.
if you've ever seen The Who's Tommy, just try and think of crazy Jack Nicholson as like it's kind of stiff, self-serious Christopher Lee. I love Christopher Lee. That's no knock on him.
Yeah. Like Jack Palance and Christopher Lee, that kind of casting connection, I can actually see a little
Yes.
bit more just because they both have that kind of creepy vibe to them. But Jack Nicholson is like chaotic creepy.
Yeah. Hervé Villechaize was cast to play basically a reverse Odd Job from Goldfinger, also directed by Hamilton. The character of Knick Knack was meant to be a henchman who was diminutive in comparison to the presence of the big bad this time. Villechaize was reportedly living out of his car in L.A. before he was cast in the film. Moore has stated that Villechaize was a bit of a sex pest on the set to women, and they never really warmed to the actor on set. I've read some things since then
Yeah.
where Roger Moore has been a bit kinder, but he does say things like Hervé would tell Maude Adams, like, I'm going to sneak in your room at night and make love to you. Yeah, it's
Don't love that.
not loving that either. Two Swedish models / actresses were selected as the Bond women this time around. Britt Eklund as Mary Goodnight and Maude Adams as Andrea Anders. Britt Eklund had wanted a role in a Bond film ever since she saw Dr. No in the 60s. Eklund had also previously been married to Peter Sellers, who had played Bond in Casino Royale, something I am still trying to make up for by making Chels sit through it. Sorry, Chels.
Deborah Carr, innocent.
Broccoli thought the casting of the two Swedish models was a good match, as Eklund's, quote, generous looks made her a good contrast to Adams.
What?
Also, just mean to Adams. Like, what the fuck, Broccoli? Also joining the cast were Richard Liu as High Fat, an industrialist who had hired Scaramanga, Soon Tok Oh as Lieutenant Hip, a martial artist and ally of Bond, and of course the return of Clifton James as Sheriff J.W. Pepper, a character Guy Hamilton liked so much in Live and Let Die that he asked Mankiewicz to include him in the script.
I will say it did take me a little too long to realize it was the same person. I'm like, why does this guy look so familiar the whole time?
They, starting in the next movie, have a reoccurring gag bit that is so much more effective than anything they do with Sheriff J.W. Pepper. And it's more like an inside joke, and I'll point it out when we get to The Spy Who Loved Me. But for some reason, like, Guy Hamilton, fuck you. Like, what are you, like, I hate this character. I don't know if you have a particularly non-American perspective on it, Michael, but like, or maybe it's just a 70s thing. Maybe it's just beyond our reach in age. Do you find the reoccurrence of J.W. Pepper to be interesting at all? Because to me, it's one of the low points of the series.
I kind of like it, actually. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously ridiculous, isn't it?
Yes.
I kind of like them taking that sort of, person who, actually in reality would probably never have left Louisiana and taking him in Thailand to go through all that. I think it is kind of, and when he's obviously, you pointy heads and all this, he's racist and things. He's kind of interesting. I mean, they've obviously done it for commercial reasons, the same as they did with Jaws.
Yes.
The later films. But it's one of them. I don't, if I was directing it, I don't know if I would have done the same. But in hindsight, it's not something that I find particularly upsetting.
I was gonna say, very Southern stereotype where parts of it are real, but the other parts I'm like, usually those people are a lot more menacing, if anything, and less bumbly.
Yeah. One thing I found about this, and maybe it's more appropriate to talk about this when we're actually talking about in, at the actual scene, but because his wife, it's the elephant thing, and he says, "We're Democrats, Mabel," and from a 2025 point of view, that doesn't really make any sense, does it?
Right.
And so I sort of did a bit of looking into it, and actually, it turns out that the Southern Democrats were the strongest party in the middle of the last century. So it is possible that he would still have been a Democrat. Obviously, they're not the Democrats that you would think of now. They were, very, very conservative.
Oh, yeah. That's the funny part about U.S. history is like these Southern
Yeah.
Democrats are literally just Republicans now. It's like the name flip
Yeah.
happened because of like civil rights.
So it's just something that I'd never really realized. I'd always thought it was a bit peculiar, but then this week, because I was coming on this thing, I thought I'll have a look into it, and then it's answered my question. So
Oh, yeah. U.S. politics don't make sense. Mostly racist trash.
Yep.
Correct.
He's definitely a MAGA guy, isn't he?
Oh, 100%.
Absolutely.
It is funny that you say that he probably would never have left Louisiana, because I think that's also because he's so deeply racist that if he were to leave Louisiana, they would go somewhere that was not a place that is just filled with, what would be considered minorities in America. Like, they would not go to a majority Asian nation if he
No.
was just going to be that deeply racist about it. But
They would go on a cruise ship these
Yep.
days, stop
Correct.
at the Bahamas and the tourist spots, and then skedaddle. They are not going
Skedaddle.
anywhere with like foreign food.
No, exactly. Guy Hamilton also continued to push Roger Moore to be harsher than he was in Live and Let Die, as seen in the moments when Bond roughs up Andrea Anders for information. The scene is shocking and violent, and a version of Bond Moore was no longer interested in playing. I found endless interviews with Roger Moore where he's said, like after this moment, I was disgusted, and I think, this was just never the way Moore was going to play Bond. There's
Mhm.
a bit, I think, in the last film where I think Tom Mankiewicz said, Sean Connery, it was very believable that he was a kiss or kill type. But with Moore, it was more likely he would seduce that information out of somebody, regardless of gender. And I think that's very, very true. There's a charm to Roger Moore that he doesn't need to be like threatening to break a woman's arm.
Director Guy Hamilton, however, wanted me ruthless.
Oh, you're hurting my arm.
I'll break it unless you tell me where those bullets go.
It didn't sit easily with me. I wanted my Bond to be a bit of a romantic. Naturally, I suggested bedding Maud Adams to extract the information. The guy was insistent I toughen up.
I think at the time there was confusion as to the direction of the Bond movies. There is a scene in The Man with the Golden Gun when they try to make him look like Sean. It didn't work at all, in my opinion. Roger is a gentleman. He will charm women into bed. He didn't have to force his way around.
Personally, I loathe violence. I am a pacifist, which is hardly the right background for somebody who's playing Bond.
Well, that, and I did this thing called Reading Gavin. Can you believe?
I love it.
Moore allegedly was the victim of domestic violence with his first marriage when he was a teenager. So I wonder if that is playing into this, that he is not comfortable roughing up people because he's been the roughed up.
There's a fun little BBC documentary that came out. I think it's BBC. Don't quote me on that. This year, called From Roger Moore with Love, and it details some of that. And it's a very like, I think Roger Moore's a good guy, so I doubt that there's many skeletons in the closet. But it's a very like family approved documentary.
Yes.
So it's all the like, fluffy stuff.
Yeah.
Fine. But it is a very nice documentary, and they do detail some of that, and they detail some of the abuse that he actually ended up having from his second wife too. So
that one was a wild read.
Yeah, he what's the democratic way to put this? He was kind of a submissive man when it came to women. Very charming, very self-effacing, and deeply caring. We'll get to this later on in this episode. He ends up becoming a goodwill ambassador specifically because of a friendship he had with Audrey Hepburn. And so ties back to you, Chels. And so, you know, I think wanting to present himself on screen as somebody that, like, a nice man doing a not nice occupation more than a not nice man doing something horrible was better. I found a Dick Cavett interview with him. I did not have to dig very far, where Dick Cavett basically is like, why do people think you're such a sexist? And he's like, because I play James Bond. He's like, yeah, but your James Bond isn't necessarily like that. He's like, you mean not like the book where he's a fascist?
I was a little more gentle with ladies until the second one, when I was allowed to break an arm or two, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, Bond in the books is not that likable a character.
Slightly fascist.
Yeah. Which, according to my source that I can't remember, so was Ian Fleming. I think that was it, that they said that personally his political views, everything, were really dreadful, hateful, mean-spirited.
Right-wing, you mean?
Well, no, I don't think a right-wing is synonymous.
Is there anybody else from the Bund here?
But that he was a bit of a fascist in his way. And,
slightly.
If I'm wrong, then
but we don't make films that way.
That Fleming himself was.
And I think it's really bold of Roger Moore to go on TV and claim that the character he's playing has roots in fascism. And I don't think he's incorrect. And I know that's upsetting to some people, but if you read the books, as I have been doing, it's very clear. And Dick Cavett's like, well, Ian Fleming was a little bit of a fascist too. And he's like, yeah, correct.
I love that we have like two anti-fascists in this cast, though, with Christopher Lee, Nazi Hunter, which is my new favorite thing.
Yes.
That's his new name now.
Yeah, I love Christopher Lee. Oh my God, I have so many. If anybody wants to invite me on their podcast to talk about Christopher Lee, I will do it for days. I have so many.
You do have a podcast where you talk about actors.
Oh, wow, I do. Huh. Funny how that works. I'll have to talk Louis into that.
Some Halloween episodes, maybe.
Yeah.
I think, because he was Ian Fleming's cousin, wasn't he? And I think during the war he was an intelligence officer, so it was probably probably was an inspiration for James Bond himself, and I think could have actually been a really good James Bond. Maybe he was a bit too old by the time that by the 70s, but who knows?
I 100% agree with you, actually, and I think it's like, I think the only thing keeping Christopher Lee, besides age, I do think age is probably a factor as well, but also Roger Moore was no spring chicken when he started. He was 45 when he started. But I think the other thing for Christopher Lee is he's so he's beautiful, like a beautiful man, but so striking in appearance that I think it's hard to, like, Connery, Moore. I think maybe the most striking is Dalton, but they all have like a softness to that, like a prettiness to them.
Oh, they're beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. Christopher Lee doesn't have. He has like a very hard. But the funny thing is that's actually more what James Bond has described in the books, because James Bond has. We haven't talked about this on the show just because I feel like it's an unnecessary thing, but everybody always talks about the scar on his face. In the books, James Bond has a scar that runs along the side of his face, where he took a knife to the face. And I think if they really wanted to do like a book translation James Bond, Christopher Lee with the scar would have been amazing. But I think they were
okay. Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah, exactly. They wanted that heartthrobby sort of like men want to be him, women want him sort of thing, and I think, in my opinion, Moore has that in spades. My husband disagrees. Every time I bring up Roger Moore, he's like, well, he was so old, and I'm like, okay, calm down.
Old people can be hot too. You heard it here first.
Yeah, my favorite thing about Roger Moore is that the sound effect that they always use when he's been beaten up and he goes, "Argh!"
Yes,
and if you listen, it's always the exact same sound.
They had fun. They definitely had fun.
They're crunching the budget there.
The location for Scaramanga's hideout was chosen due to the massive and tall land outcrops surrounding it. The location on Ko Khao Ping Khan and Ko Tapu, I hope I said that right, is often now referred to as James Bond Island by locals and is great for tourism. So if there's one good thing that came from this movie, it's helped the economy of Thailand. You, Michael, have said you've actually been to James Bond Island?
I have, yes. It's a long time ago, and like I think I was about 21 at the time, and like lots of people who went to go to Thailand when they're 21. I can't remember a great deal about it. But we were, we were either staying on Koh Phi Phi or in Krabi, which are they're both like places where you can get to James Bond Island by boat. And that's, I've seen it in like the tourist shops. I was like, I've got to go there, I've got to have a look at that. So, we did, and the boat ride to the island is one of the most spectacular things I've ever done in my life. You see when Bond's coming in on the seaplane, it's just spectacular. And it's quite surreal actually being there and seeing
what I was saying earlier about the idea that like this isn't as good at selling the place. I will say this part at the end is actually very beautiful, and the land outcroppings on the island are so cool and so unique to that area that I absolutely understand why you'd want to film there. And then they play a part in the plot, which I think is cool. But yeah, I would love to go. I'm meaning to go to Thailand for a very long time and just have not yet. But if I do, this is on the checklist.
And you are sending me pictures of all the food.
Yes, absolutely. Longtime Bond cinematographer Ted Moore left production midway through, and this was most likely due to illness, though others have reported that he quit. To replace him, Academy Award and BAFTA-winning cinematographer Oswald Morris, who had worked on Fiddler on the Roof and The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, was flown in. But he was really hesitant to work on a film that had already been started and was already in production until Broccoli took him to a pretty expensive dinner and told him he was the right person for the job. So then he started almost immediately. It was Guy Hamilton himself who suggested Scaramanga's hideout feel like a, quote, twisted Disneyland, with production designer Peter Merton saying he wanted to feel like a combination of a fun house and a house of horrors. An actual wax figure of Roger Moore was used as his funhouse double, while his real photo double, Les Crawford, played the cowboy in the movie. For the solar-powered plant set, most of the physical locations were shot on the sound stages at Pinewood, but the sets were accentuated using miniatures and seamlessly cut together in edit. The film features 2 returning editors from Live and Let Die's 3, Raymond Poulton and John Shirley. I think some of that miniature work is great, and some of it's real bad. 3 prop versions of the famous Golden Gun were completed, a solid one, and 2 that could be disassembled into parts that make up the gun in the movie. Though Christopher Lee has said that the assembly of this was a lot more complicated than implied on screen.
Very difficult to put this wretched gun together. There was one that actually fired a cap, so you saw the flash. There was one that's completely solid, and there was the one I assembled and disassembled. Difficult enough even when I was looking at it.
So we were talking, I was sitting at the desk, and suddenly I went like this, and I'd got the gun all assembled.
When I was doing it without looking at it, it was even more difficult.
And he said, how the hell did you do that? So I said, well, I take it home in the evening and practice when I'm watching TV.
In 2008, one of those 3 went missing, stolen from the SD Props house, and has not been recovered. At the time of this recording, it's estimated to be worth £80,000.
Damn.
Yeah. I love reading about all the little James Bond thefts over the years. There are 2 major car stunts in the film, and both are basically created as fantastic product placement schemes. One being Scaramanga's flying car, which is an AMC Matador Brougham coupe in the Oleg Cassini edition outfitted with wings. It goes without saying that it could not actually fly, and a remote-controlled miniature was used for the flying scenes.
What?
I know, this is shocking news to all of you, I'm sure. The second stunt was accomplished with a 1974 AMC Hornet X, which was the corkscrew bridge jump. It is the first stunt on film ever planned using computers, and it was accomplished in one take by stunt driver Lauren, quote, Bumps Willert, being shot simultaneously by 8 cameras. Supposedly, Saltzman and Broccoli took out patents and copyrights on the stunt after seeing it performed in Hershey, Pennsylvania at an American Thrill show by race car driver W.J. Milligan Jr., so as to not let the stunt be used in any film before Bond could use it. Love them. They're so insane and smart.
I was sitting in a hotel room in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, with a competitor of mine who had also done stunt work for Bond. And I had a phone call, and this fellow on the other end said, "This is Cubby Broccoli in London. Are you the chap who designed or did the car stunt in the Houston Astrodome?" The computer was used by the National Highway Safety Bureau in the investigation and reconstruction of single-vehicle automobile accidents worldwide. The firm that happened to do that was a company in Buffalo, division of Cornell University. An ingenious engineer there by the name of Raymond McHenry visualized that we could do a complete football spiral type with a full-size automobile.
The exercise is quite complicated because the car has to be perfectly balanced. The steering wheel is in the middle.
The car would have been cut in half, widened about 2 inches. Everything was then centralised and balanced.
We found a driver who we knew through the business, whose name was Lauren Willett.
Bumps Willard.
Bumps did the actual jump.
I sat with Cubby Broccoli for many hours, and we talked about if the car failed, if the takeoff ramp broke, that we would have a driver in a seatbelt and a 3-point restraining harness in the water.
Because the stunt happens so quickly, it had to be slowed down in post-production in order to get the full impact. It was supposedly John Barry's decision to add the slide whistle to the scene, something he regretted for the rest of his life. The corkscrew stunt made the Guinness Book of Records as the first, quote, astro-spiral jump on film, and cost the film about $300,000 alone.
Remember when they didn't have a production design budget at all? And then they can do this stunt.
I do think, though, that, for all of the criticisms of the film, I truly believe that it's probably the greatest stunt in the whole of cinema. And I think it's what we're missing from cinema today is those kind of real, one chance sort of stunts,
I think that's why people are drawn to the Mission Impossible and even some of the Fast and the Furious stuff, because they will destroy a car to do something cool that's like physical and not just a computer.
Yeah.
It's so cool. It's literally so cool. And I'm not even somebody who, I'm never like, oh my God, like breathtaking explosion guy. But to watch a car physically do a 360, land upright on the other side, and the way that the bridges curve as it does it, it's like even the slide whistle, which is egregious, does to me not diminish the effect because it's so unique looking and it's so physical. And you're right, we don't have stuff like that in movies nowadays. And I think you're also right, Chels, that it like is what draws people to Tom Cruise hanging off an airplane because it's real.
We hope that he falls off.
And then he falls off. Exactly.
So I better cut that out. We don't want to upset Tom.
Yeah, exactly. He's bringing the movies back, Michael.
The Scientology saucer will come and steal you now.
Yeah. It's on loan from Casino Royale.
I will say, it does feel like the filmmakers saw Steve McQueen, the Bullet movie, and were like, we need a good car chase like that because that's like a really cool car chase. And I did just like recognize some of the ideas between films.
Before you got on the call, Chels, actually, Michael and I were talking about how John Barry does take credit for the slide whistle, but as you know as well, these things pass through so many hands, even after scoring,
So many.
that somebody could have been like, we don't need that. And so it's funny to me that he would take blame for it because I really feel like somebody has paid him over the years to take credit for it.
It's like his silence money is happening right there. He's like, you take this, you're going to make so much money. Your legacy is going to be padded forever. Like, again, I just re-listened to some of Morgan's editors things, and it's one of those like, just don't take it personal, guys. It's just take the notes and do it. It might not be what you think is creatively good. And I'm just thinking that very thought watching this scene with the slide whistle. Ugh.
And it certainly wouldn't have been recorded at the same time as the orchestra and stuff. So yes, it could have easily been overdubbed, and then we think actually, let's get rid.
Oh yeah, It could have been a different sound person doing that, actually, and he's like, "I'll just take the hit."
Yeah. No, but to be honest, because I've seen it so many times I kind of can't imagine it without it anymore. Anyway, and I don't find it as upsetting as other people. It's one of the things that's always mentioned, isn't it? But I think it's fine.
I think I'd like it more if more of the movie had silly sound effects, because I am a Looney
Yeah,
Tune in
but
real life, so I am pro silly.
yeah, I mean, I think generally with comedy things, you always try and do the music quite straight, don't you? So to have something like that, is sort of
Yeah.
unusual, particularly in a Bond film. But but it is a silly Bond film. It's probably it's one of the most silly, I think. So it's not completely out of place.
It's very leading. It's very like
Yeah.
laugh now, and it's like, but I don't need to like this. What's happening in front of me is very cool, and so I think that's also why it doesn't quite.
Yeah, I mean, I find like sort of Bond's imitation of J.W. Pepper funnier than the slide whistle.
Exactly. Speaking of John Barry returned once again to handle the score and theme for the film. Saltzman's music producer, Tony Bramwell, suggested Elton John or Cat Stevens for the theme, but Broccoli nixed both ideas, opting for one written by Barry and returning lyricist Don Black and sung by British artist Lulu. Many critics of the theme found it too crass due to the innuendo and mostly just not great.
They were a bit on the nose. He has a powerful weapon. That got your attention straight away.
The lyrics are fantastic. I mean, in fact, it's a little bit of a gay anthem, All the gay boys love it. He has a powerful weapon. He charges 1,000,000 a shot.
However, Lulu herself claims the song is a, quote, gay anthem, insert eye roll. And John Barry himself even went on record saying it was his worst theme.
It's the least interesting Bond song. It's the one I hate most than anything. It just never happened for me. It's the one thing I really think was really bad, very bad.
There was an alternate song considered, written and performed by Alice Cooper with backing vocals by the Pointer Sisters, Ronnie Spector, and Liza Minnelli. Cooper's rejected theme was later released on his album Muscle of Love.
We did it da 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 da. We really made it so it was a car chase. It was, you could picture what was going on. It was such a sure bet. When we listened back to it, everybody in the movie business heard it and went, "Oh, that's so dead on."
I'm flattered.
They said, "Thank you. It was great." And they picked Lulu's, which was just nothing.
I will say this. I do think the Alice Cooper theme is better. It is still not a Bond theme. It's like too prog rock. It doesn't a lot of people have if you just literally search Alice Cooper Man with the Golden Gun on YouTube, somebody has set it to the opening credits and it also doesn't work. So
I would say a theme by Pointer Sisters or Ronnie Spector or Liza Minnelli, I would be interested to see what those were separately from Alice Cooper.
Yeah.
Also, a little homophobic not to hire Elton John, who historically makes some pretty good songs for movies. He's made some bangers. And he was in his cooking era right there.
Oh,
so
yeah. Is that a double entendre? Is that a drug reference? I mean, he would agree. I think Elton John would be a fine Bond open, he would write a great one. Cat Stevens?
That would have been strange, wouldn't it?
That's a choice.
Yeah.
I like Cat Stevens, but are you listening to the wind, buddy? Is that So, in a way, we got the better version of, I don't know. As a kid, I had a James Bond CD that had all the themes on it, up through The World Is Not Enough, because that was the one that had just recently come out. I would often skip Man with the Golden Gun. It just doesn't do anything for me. I mean, the line, "Who will he bang?" It's not even clever innuendo. It's just, come on.
Yeah, but having a powerful weapon.
Yeah, there you go. As for the score itself, Barry had only 3 weeks to finish it, leaving him feeling it was rushed and making it one of his least favorite score of the series. I think that's a little harsh. I don't know if I had to pick a least favorite score, which one I would pick, but I do think there's bits in this movie where the score works really well. The like recurring theme of The Man with the Golden Gun.
Yeah, I do think that's the one thing that the song, when it's used bits of it as part of the score, works really, really well, actually.
Yeah. So,
my heart jumped whenever I saw 3 weeks, and I'm like, oh.
I can't remember her name, and this is really doing her injustice, but there was a woman who used to write a majority of the Hammer film scores in the 1950s, and they made so many movies and they had so much output that her famous quote was, she would often say, "Do you want it good or do you want it Tuesday?" And that was the... Yeah.
I need a shirt for an editor that says that, because sometimes that is what I am having to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Make you guys want to.
The film was released on December 18th, 1974 in the United States and December 20th in the UK. With an estimated budget of $7 million, the film made $97.6 million at the international box office, with only $21 million coming from North America, making it the fourth lowest grossing Bond film in the series. There was also less of a push for marketing on the film, and the main products that were being pushed outside of it were solely just the soundtrack and a paperback book, and a toy gun replica which looked more like Bond's gun than it ever did look like Scaramanga's. It was just Bond's gun, but spray painted gold.
Very Batman, where they were supposed to
Yes.
do the Batman Returns, and it's Marlon Wayans, and then they just repaint it to be
A white
the
guy?
white guy.
Yep. I had that action
Can't
figure.
remember his name. I know his name.
He's
on a
it was
cop
even
show.
before. Well, it was before Chris O'Donnell though, because it was for Batman.
Yeah,
it was like prior.
Batman
was-
Returns.
Yeah. So they just written him
Yeah.
out of the. Oh, let me tell you, I can do the full history of Batman Returns.
We're
if
gonna
you
do a
want.
Batman podcast one day. Look out.
Yes, absolutely. The reviews of this film were not much kinder, many feeling that this was finally Bond scraping the bottom of the barrel. David Robinson for the British paper The Times said Moore was, quote, substituting non-acting for Connery's throwaway acting, and bemoaned the loss of Ken Adam on the production design side, though there were some complimentary reviews that liked Moore's effort to move the character towards a more charming and palatable spy. Retrospective reviews haven't really been much kinder either. And I do have one final production note. Picking up on the tension I had mentioned in the last episode, this is the final Eon Bond film produced by both Albert R. Broccoli and Harry Saltzman. Saltzman had started to spread himself too thin and was spending too much money on other non-Bond projects.
Cubby didn't understand at all why Harry was so determined to do other things. He felt Harry didn't pay enough attention to Bond.
There was a competitiveness between him and Cubby. The way to be more successful than Cubby is to do more than Cubby.
He wanted to be a giant. He wanted everybody to accept that he was the king of the hill.
Harry got into other businesses,
De jour camera, Technicolor.
some real estate propositions, and even had a sausage factory.
Writing checks left, right, and center.
When the loan collectors came calling, and with his wife falling ill with cancer, Saltzman ended up having to sell his 50% stake in Donjak LLC, but he refused to sell to Cubby Broccoli. So United Artists stepped in and took over Saltzman's role, tying the Eon Bond films permanently to their studio for the time being. With Saltzman's exit and the perceived failure of The Man with the Golden Gun, the future now looked questionable for the James Bond films. But more on that in next episode.
Also, while you were talking about the dollars, I just want everyone to know that this movie was made for what, $7 million? Made $97 million. That's like a $40 million film now, making like over $500 million, and it's perceived as a failure.
Yep, didn't do well.
No, terrible.
Yeah, our economics are fucked up. I think that's what you're getting at.
Exactly. Some things never change, y'all. It's not just Marvel.
All right. Well, I think that's enough about production. Why don't we get into the film itself and find out more as we open this dossier on The Man with the Golden Gun.
Everyone, buckle up. John Barry's familiar arrangement of the Monty Norman James Bond theme, with perhaps more tambourine than ever, brings us into our gun barrel sequence. Roger Moore appears in a casual business suit for the last time, firing his shot at the audience. The barrel then widens out to reveal Maude Adams as Andrea Anders lounging on a stone beach. I want to go there.
I know.
A man known as Knick Knack brings her a bottle of champagne as she gets up to hand Francisco Scaramanga a towel. We don't know the names of these people yet, but just roll with it. As Scaramanga dries off, the camera lingers on what appears to be his third nipple, aka secret third thing.
Knick Knack pops the champagne as a cartoony-looking gangster enters the frame. This gangster was previously seen in Diamonds Are Forever. It is not intentional if he's supposed to be the same gangster or not. They just kind of left that to the audience to assume.
Mark Lawrence, the actor, and he was sort of a very much a go-to mobster.
Yes.
Though he's not actually an Italian-American, apparently, I found out today.
I didn't know that.
No, he's sort of, I think, Polish and Russian Jewish ancestry. But he's quite convincing.
Wow, those are strong features. Knick Knack beckons him forward while telling him to keep quiet. Letting the gangster inside Scaramanga's spacious home, Knick Knack hands him an envelope saying that this is half and he'll get the rest later, before pointing him to another waiting room that contains an old-timey shooting gallery. Scaramanga heads inside only to be jumped by the gangster, now armed. The room goes red and Scaramanga hides as Knick Knack watches from a control room and taunts. Suddenly, the room transforms into a funhouse, including flashing lights, skeletons, an Old West set, and a garage with Al Capone. Knick Knack taunts Scaramanga into trying to find his golden gun, but Scaramanga is able to turn a set of stairs into a slide and retrieve the gun, shooting the gangster in the head and revealing a wax replica of James Bond. Knick Knack commends Scaramanga, and Scaramanga proceeds to shoot each finger off of the wax Bond, leaving the mannequin looking nervous as we head into the opening credits. This is, first of all, this is the set. I wish, I think if Ken Adam, not to pit Ken Adam against this poor set designer, had Ken Adam been involved, we would have gotten this big, spacious, ornate fun house. And I think the decision to make this, most of this fun house that happens in Scaramanga's home occurs in just a black void. And so it looks cheap. There's no way around it. It just kind of does look cheap. Also, we talked about in the On Her Majesty's Secret Service episode that we were able to get a moment of fourth wall breaking when George Lazenby looks at the audience and says, "This never happened to the other guy." I've never put it together until watching it this time. We're basically getting the same thing when the wax figure's expression changes to looking scared after having his fingers shot off. And I think it's such a funny Looney Tunes joke, but it is so...
I love it.
I don't know if it's direction. I don't know if it's cinematography. It's so unremarked upon by the movie itself that I was just like, oh, why throw it away? Why not make it a bigger deal?
Wonderful idea and concept. Dig into the Looney Tune more, because I love Looney Tune. More of that. More goofy. I love it.
Yeah, because you did say in the production notes, and there is a genuine wax model of Roger Moore. Because I was watching it this morning, and the Al Capone supposedly model statue, when he shoots his gun, he blinks.
Yeah, he's another actor. I didn't put the actor's name in here, but yeah, he is just he's another actor.
So they obviously only had budget for one. Yeah.
They're very expensive.
No, I'm sure.
Did they have to have 2 Roger Moore figures? Or did they ever Roger, come in here?
That was an extra $10,000. They were like, nope.
They needed every penny for the stunt.
Exactly. Hey, modeled by computers. Do you know how much a computer cost back then?
Computers were literally a whole room, at NASA at this point. Blaring trumpets and a funky guitar riff brings us into Maurice Bender's latest artist open, including naked women, rippling waters, sparklers, and the golden gun itself. Lulu croons what is certainly a low point in terms of James Bond theme songs.
That's my note.
I was going to say, yeah. This is not my favorite opening montage. I felt like they could have gone harder.
I just think Maurice Binder sometimes didn't have strong concepts and was just like, more naked women, because this is also the era, like the 70s is also like, they're not hiding the nipples either. Like these movies are not these are not R-rated movies, but when you're watching these opening credits, you are seeing full naked women. It's kind of wild.
Slightly covered up with a bully tunnel.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so I don't know what his thought process was, but yeah, this one is a little. It's not anywhere near as exciting, I think, as some of the previous ones. And they'll get better. I think he comes up with better concepts. The more and more goes along, but I think for this one he thought, Golden Gun, that's it. Everything else, just water ripples. Bond enters M's office, and we're introduced to MI6's Chief of Staff, Bill Tanner, played by Michael Goodliff, for the first time in the Eon Bond series. Bill Tanner is a character who shows up a lot in the novels, usually very, not for very long, but he becomes a more important character in the Eon Bond series as they go along, mostly specifically in the Daniel Craig era, played by Rory Kinnear, I believe. M asks Bond what he knows about a man named Scaramanga. Bond seems to know everything, including his $1 million a hit price tag, his use of golden bullets, and his third nipple. M hands him a golden bullet emblazoned with 007 etched into it. Bond asks who would pay $1 million to place a hit on him, and M replies,
jealous husbands, outraged chefs, humiliated tailors. The list is endless.
I loved it.
I love that line.
It's so good. And genuinely, Bernard Lee's M, especially at this
I love
point.
him.
Yeah. At this point in the series, he is we give Q a lot of the credit for being annoyed with Bond. I would say at this point in this film, finally, M has also reached the point where he's like, shut the fuck up, Bond. Just do your job.
A bit unfairly in certain points, I think.
Yes.
Why is he angry at Bond? What's he done? Not his fault.
He truly just hates this man, and it's one of those, like, once you dislike somebody, like, and it can be irrationally, once they start giving you rational reasons to hate him, you just double down, and you're just hateful, like, violent forward,
Yeah.
which, that's not me at all.
I absolutely hate Bond's suit in this scene as well.
Oh, funny. You know what? I have a whole thing planned for the final section to talk about the fashions. So
okay,
let's put a bullet
Yay!
in that for a moment.
Right.
A golden bullet.
Because honestly, this is, I feel like, where they like finally are like, oh, we can put Bond in something else. This movie, which is,
Yeah.
because for Connery it was usually like business suits, tuxes, and then Lazenby same, and I think Live and Let Die is when they're finally like, oh, maybe like Roger Moore can start wearing more interesting things. And then this movie, it's a little crazy, and I think they pull it back a bit for the next movie. Tanner tells Bond Scaramanga is attempting to intimidate Bond, and M relieves Bond of his current assignment. Bond tells M, with the energy crisis still happening, that, quote, finding Gibson and his solar cell data is more important than ever. Unmoved, M tells Bond to take a vacation until this hit blows over, and that Scaramanga has the upper hand as they don't know what he looks like. Bond asks if he finds Scaramanga first, would that change things? And M responds in the affirmative. I think it is interesting. This is one of the few movies that, outside of having an unrelated cold open, one of the few movies that starts with Bond already on mission. Like he is already in the middle of something, and it ends up tying into this specific plot. And I think that's fascinating because we never really get a brief until, I want to say, 2/3 of the movie is over, about what this solar plot is, other than we already know that there's an energy crisis happening, and there was an energy crisis happening in reality at the time, and that Bond is looking for something to do with solar power. And that's it. And I think, to me, that's very interesting, and maybe not played with enough in the movie to keep that interest up.
Bond greets the love of my life, Miss Moneypenny, at her desk and asks her about what happened to 002, as it is assumed the man with the golden gun killed him. Moneypenny gives Bond the info that he was killed in Beirut, and he tells her that she's better than a computer in all sorts of ways, she quips. But you never take advantage of them. I did like this. M calls her away, but not before Bond asks why Scaramanga wasn't the confirmed killer of 002. She replies because they couldn't find the bullet. Dun dun.
criminally underused Lois Maxwell in this movie. This is basically her only scene. I love her to death.
And she crushes. Like,
Yeah.
my heart skips so many beats. Oh, she's so witty and beautiful and funny. I love her.
Backstage at a belly dancing show in Beirut, Bond questions the dancer about Bill Fairbanks, 002, as she was with him the night he died. To this day, she dances with the bullet in her belly jewel as a good luck charm. She tries to seduce Bond, and he attempts to remove the charm with his mouth, but not before some goons hit him in the back of the head, forcing him to choke on it. Bond fights off the 3 men and leaves the room as the dancer exclaims, "I've lost my charm." Not from where I'm standing, he quips, and hops into a taxi to the nearest pharmacy. This laxative joke?
Yeah, it's so good, isn't it? And I think it's the only point, isn't it, in the entire series that talks about Bond doing a shit. So,
Yes.
it has to be, it's got to be, it's a good one.
It's pretty good. I loved it. Oh,
But then they double down on it in the next scene, don't they? In
Yes.
case you'd missed it the first time.
Yeah, they're like, we really need you to know this man had a bowel movement.
what a goofy sequence. Again, so goofy. More of this. Loved him choking. Back at the Q division, Q has a top man analyze the bullet. Q informs Bond that the gun the bullet was fired from is undoubtedly custom, making it untraceable. But the nickel content in the bullet points to the Far East, and specifically to a bullet maker named Laser who lives in Macau. Meeting Laser there, who is losing this lip sync, he inquires about the gold bullets. Bond threatens to shoot Laser in the groin unless he gives him the info. Bond follows the man as he delivers the bullets at the casino, spotting Andrea Anders for the first time. He follows her to a ferry as she carries the bullets into Hong Kong. Also, Andrea Anders is such a boring name for these.
It really
It's
is.
weird.
Yeah.
It's weird to see somebody that, I probably went to high school with an Andrea Anders. These are supposed to be silly, sexy names.
He attempts to follow her car in a cab, but is immediately cut off by Holly Goodnight, his assistant, who has arrived very late to assist. He tells her to put a trace on a green Rolls Royce and that there can't be many, but after being posted for 2 years in Hong Kong, she already knows that all green Rolls are courtesy cars of the Peninsula Hotel. Bond cons his way into Anders' room with champagne and catches her in the shower. However, she has a gun and she threatens him, but Bond gets the upper hand, knocking her down and twisting her arm behind her back, threatening to break it until she tells him who she is delivering the bullets to. When she says she doesn't know where to find him, he slaps her.
I said where?
I don't know where. He doesn't tell me everything. I know he has a date at the Bottoms Up Club tonight.
How will I recognize him?
Tall, slim, and dark.
Says my aunt. Anything distinctive about him?
Yes, but how can I... He's not like other people. He has 3.
Fascinating anatomical tidbit. But probably the most useless piece of information I ever heard. Unless, of course, the Bottoms Up is a strip club and Scaramanga is performing there. You'll have to do better.
Describing him and telling Bond she doesn't want him to hurt her anymore. Bond tells her she's to deliver the bullets as per plan and he will follow. This whole scene, so uncomfortable. And you can tell Roger Moore doesn't want to do it. And when she, and I like Maud Adams a lot. Unfortunately, she's in 2 of my least favorite James Bond movies because she will come back, Chels, as a different character. But the way she delivers the "I don't want you to hurt me anymore" is so good, and this movie is unworthy of that performance.
Yeah, you warned me about this several times, and my favorite thing is when Gavin says I'm sorry before a film because I'm we're gonna have a good discussion about something. This was so difficult to watch. I was like, wow, he just full on goes for it. And we've seen Sean Connery slap a woman or use her as a
Right.
human shield, but this just felt different.
Yeah.
Somehow extra sinister. Bond waits across the way from the Bottoms Up Club as Scaramanga and Andrea spend some time alone together. Bond is met by Knick-Knack, who smiles and eerily walks away. As Bond approaches the club, Scaramanga takes a shot but seemingly misses, hitting another man in the head. Lieutenant Hip immediately places Bond, who is holding his gun, under arrest and takes him to a boat. Back at Scaramanga's mobile base, an elaborate bedroom housed on what looks like an old wooden sailing ship, Scaramanga menacingly rubs Andrea's mouth with his golden gun. That was so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Lieutenant Hip takes Bond away to the wreckage of the RMS Queen Elizabeth, MI6's hidden Far East base.
I think the Bond roughing Andrea Anders up also doesn't work if you immediately follow it up with the scene of the bad guy doing the same thing, because then as an audience, you are literally watching two terrible men. And so
Yeah, and the connection is so clear. It's like, who's worse? That is the comparison you're drawing.
And it's funny because we ended up having a similar situation in Live and Let Die when he was with the other secret agent, and he's like, if you don't tell me this information, I'll kill you. And she's like, but if I do, Mr. Big will kill me. And once again, we said in that episode, you don't believe Roger Moore will kill her. And so to have this, which actually was violent and did feel bad, as an audience, you're watching both your hero and the guy you're supposed to hate, Scaramanga, which Christopher Lee, very good at making you hate him. So, like, the reason why he played villains most of his career, it's hard to find someone to root for. And so I think that's also a huge knock against this movie in terms of James Bond.
I mean, I agree that, the violence doesn't... if you can imagine Sean Connery doing that scene, can't you, I think? And you probably wouldn't be shocked by it. And so I think you're right that it doesn't quite suit the Roger Moore iteration of it. But I think that line that he says at the end of it, when she says, I don't want you to twist my arm again, and he says, I don't want to either. That softens it to a certain extent, I think. But
well, I think that's the real bit of Roger Moore in it.
Yeah.
Like that's the bit that makes it Roger Moore James Bond and no one else's. But yeah, it's still just tough to watch. And it also just in general feels inappropriate for the era, because like these are not the 60s James Bond movies. These are the 70s. And like, women's lib, we still don't fully have equality for women at this point in time. It's 2025, but I think there was a certain
I think we have less rights now.
Yeah, actually, but I think actually there was a thought that there was more, that we'd moved on from such things. So I think one of the great things about the James Bond films is they're often reinventing themselves for the time they take place in, and I think that's the thing that feels the most a bunch of old white men in a room being like, yeah, he's got to be tough, and not except British accents, but I don't want to insult anybody by trying to do a British accent.
I do kind of like the a water pistol line there.
Yes,
for some reason. It's quite stupid, but I like it.
A water pistol.
Pass me that rope.
And he's so funny and so charming that he pulls off.
He is so funny and charming that, like, literally after all these scenes of violence, and he's back to just doing his Roger Moore-ness, that I'm like, okay, luckily I can enjoy the rest of his performance and what he's doing. And just knowing that Roger Moore is like, no, never again, I'm like, okay, I can root for you.
And not to like shit on the lack of great career that George Lazenby didn't have after this, but like Connery could have pulled this off and still been menacing afterwards, and Roger Moore pulls it off and is still likable afterwards. I don't know if Lazenby had the range. And once again, I like Lazenby, and I don't want it to come off as I don't, but he was a model. He was pretty.
He was. Imagine like On Her Majesty's Secret Service with Roger Moore. That rom-com, I believe.
Stop. I love it.
That would be so hot.
Curse you, the saint. Bond is brought to M's office on the boat with Lieutenant Hip and Q. Bond reports that the man killed outside the Bottoms Up Club is in fact the missing solar expert Gibson. Dun dun dun. Lieutenant Hip claims that Gibson had created a Solex agitator that was 90% effective and would solve the energy crisis, something we still don't have nowadays. Lieutenant Hip also says the Solex was stolen from Gibson's corpse. Bond suggests that a wealthy industrialist named High Fat hired Scaramanga to kill Gibson for the Solex. Bond says that he has an idea how to get close to Scaramanga and High Fat, who he wagers has never actually met each other. and makes a special request to Q, to which Q remarks, really 007 in disgust. I think this is the first Q really 007 in the series, which it basically becomes Q's catchphrase.
That gives me an idea as to how to approach him. Q, I'll need this.
Really 007.
It's quite impressive that Q can just sort of knock up a fake nipple just like that.
He's got his top men working on it, honestly.
Yeah.
Literally, top men.
Top men. I love this interaction. Maybe the only negative in this entire thing is the introduction of a character named High Fat, who admittedly, it's the most Tom Mankiewicz thing in the world. And admittedly, I guess he had an assistant named Low Fat that they cut out of the script. And I'm like, thank God. We can't do both, guys.
Dear goodness, why?
Yeah.
Lieutenant Hip takes Bond to Bangkok, where Bond purposefully infiltrates High Fat's headquarters and instantly runs into the very naked Chumi, who is
Correct.
having a dip in the pool. Bond takes off his shirt, revealing he now also has a third nipple. High Fat assumes Bond is Scaramanga. Bond warns High Fat that the, once again, very public secret agent is coming for him and that High Fat should employ him to eliminate Bond. Bond returns to Lieutenant Hip, throwing away the fake nipple. However, the real Scaramanga is already in High Fat's compound, revealing he wasn't fooled at all.
My favorite little bit in this, well, first of all, Chumi, poor Chumi, I feel like there must be deleted scenes because they hired an entire actress to play this role.
They gave her a name.
They gave her a name.
There are uncredited white men who speak for lengths of time in this movie.
Yes.
Without, they gave her a name and a credit.
But my other favorite thing is Q is constantly telling James to bring the gadgets back unharmed. He goes to all that trouble, makes a beautiful, realistic-looking third nipple. Bond just throws it away. You don't think he wants that back?
This is why Q hates him.
What purpose would it serve in the future?
You don't know, Michael.
What if you need to be this guy again? We don't know.
What if he just has on him like a belt roll just full of fake nipples that he can just choose which one he wants?
Like a fruit by the foot?
Yes, exactly.
Peel one off.
Peel one off, stick it on. All set. You have no idea how many three-nippled bad guys there are out there. Bond leaves goodnight at the hotel, and Lieutenant Hip and his nieces Cha and Nara transport Bond back to Fat's compound for dinner. Hidden among High Fat's statues is Knick-Knack, and Bond is attacked by two sumo wrestlers. To escape, Bond basically gives one of the wrestlers an atomic wedgie, but Knick-Knack hits Bond over the head. Before Knick-Knack can complete the kill, High Fat says, "Not in my home," and has them take Bond to, quote, school. This goes back to something we've talked to on many episodes. The bad guys' inability to kill Bond often just comes from the fact that they don't. This could have been the end of Bond. Knick-Knack could have killed Bond. There's nothing that stops Knick-Knack from killing Bond other than the Deus Ex Machina of High Fat being like, I don't want to have to clean this up.
Honestly, fair. Fair.
I find this scene some peculiar things, like why has Lieutenant Hip got Thai nieces, and why are the sumo wrestlers in Thailand? But doesn't really matter, I suppose. But
if it makes you feel better, what's even crazier is the nieces are speaking to each other. Only one of them is speaking Thai. The other one, I believe, is speaking Mandarin. So they're responding to each other, but not in the same language.
We need a translator for this scene to let us know what they were actually saying.
Oh,
do you think they were...
If you go on IMDb, somebody has already translated it. Yeah.
Perfect. So I'm like, are they just talking about their lunch orders? Because I would, if I had to speak a different language that no one else said, I would just say whatever I wanted.
One of my favorite filmmaking stories, and this goes back years when I was a kid. I think it was Jennifer Connelly on maybe The Tonight Show or maybe Letterman as a child talking about working on the movie Phenomena with Dario Argento. And she explained because in Italy, they wouldn't record sync sound. Everybody is dubbed in Italy for years. It was just a classic practice. And so she was talking about how she would do these scenes with Dario Argento's wife, Daria Nicoletti, and Jennifer Connelly would just speak English, and Daria Nicoletti would respond in Italian, and she just knew to say her next line when Daria Nicoletti stopped talking.
Wow. Oh, Jennifer Connelly. I feel like she's got stories.
Yeah, probably.
Probably.
The other thing here, I think, to me, except for the jump over the river, I think this is the point that the film starts to go downhill quite rapidly.
Yes.
Probably.
I think it's quite good up to now, actually, and I'm enjoying it. And then now it's,
Yeah, once you get to the martial arts academy, it's kind of like, what are we doing?
Exactly.
Yeah. I think actually it's not uncommon for the second half of Bond films to sort of go a bit off.
Oh, yeah. I think part of it is, and this is just me spitballing, is that like they are pretty convoluted plots. And so when you get to the point where like you have to start actually unraveling them, that's when like the work has to come in, and for the audience, like the business part of it can be kind of boring. But also like I'm saying that, but then in this particular case, it's literally because they run into a non sequitur, which is just the martial arts academy, which truly has nothing to do with the rest of the movie and is just a side trip to show off people doing martial arts.
Yeah, let's get some kung fu in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
It's just peculiar, isn't it, as well, that you get the sort of the MacGuffin Solex agitator appears like so late in the film, and
Oh yeah. And it feels like because they don't put any effort into reminding you about it earlier on in the movie, it feels like a throwaway line that as an audience you're expected to remember, and it's like, well, that's not the way this like. At least you have to like seed it throughout. You have to make it the audience feel like it's important. That way, when you surprise them with it later on, they're excited. Oh, they're like, oh, that's the thing, and they're not doing that.
Yeah, I mean, they could have easily included a scene with I can't remember his name, the guy who's invented the Solex agitator, with him talking about it or doing something right at the beginning, or and then that might have helped like sort of glue it together a bit better.
They really needed a Madam Web to connect it all.
Correct. You're gonna slide that into every episode.
If I can. Bond awakens at a martial arts academy owned by High Fat, and after witnessing two students fight to the death, Bond is then led to the circle to fight his way out. Bond attempts an escape just as Lieutenant Hip, Cha, and Nara show up to take on the entire school. However, Hip and the girls take off without Bond, but he is able to make it to the water and steal a speedboat. However, his motor dies, and when a child climbs aboard, the boat This is my favorite part of the whole movie. However, his motor dies, and when a child climbs aboard the boat to try and sell him a wooden elephant, but instead fixes the motor, Bond pushes the child overboard and speeds away. I respect that. Children, go away.
Yeah.
This is exactly what I was talking about like Roger Moore then becomes a like UNICEF ambassador, and he's like, I don't want my legacy of helping children to be me pushing one off into the water in a James Bond film.
20,000 baht!
I'm afraid I have to owe you. I look back on that with absolute horror. Roger Moore, UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador, knocking little Thai boys off boats.
Yes. Oh, and we forget the part where he's like, I'll give you 20,000 to fix this, and then the kid asks to pay up, and then boom, pushes him.
Yeah. A bloody tourist in the English accent.
Yes.
Thank you for giving me a paragraph where a child gets pushed off a boat.
Oh, you're very welcome. Of course, as he speeds down the river, his boat splashes Sheriff J.W. Pepper from Live and Let Die, who just happens to be on vacation in Thailand. He is, of course, incredibly racist. Bond is able to cut his pursuer's boat in half just when Sheriff Pepper recognizes Bond right before an elephant pushes him into the water. Why any of this matters remains a mystery to the audience.
The audience is the elephant pushing him into the water.
Yes, correct.
Scaramanga meets with High Fat, where he receives the Solex from him as he puts together his golden gun from its components: a fountain pen for the barrel, a cigarette lighter for the bullet chamber, and a cigarette case for the handle and the cufflink for the trigger. He then kills High Fat and disassembles the gun, taking his place as the chairman of the board at his company.
Mr. Fat has just resigned. I'm the new chairman of the board.
This man charges $1 million a hit. And I know he's doing this for his own purposes, but he just killed a man for free using one of his golden bullets. It seems like losing money on that one. 2, this is not the Klingon Empire. You do not get to take the position of the person you killed. You don't succeed in business just by killing.
I was gonna say, this is not how a chairman of the board is assigned. This is not a monarchy.
I don't know how business works in the UK, Michael, but
not these days.
I was gonna say maybe like the 16th century. Maybe. There is a weird concept of duels. We'll get to more of it. It's like we're gonna kill, and then the winner takes it all. Like
yeah, true. I didn't even think about that. I didn't put that together. Bond meets Mary Goodnight for dinner, and even though they flirt, Goodnight turns him down. However, she's being followed by Knick-Knack. Still, Goodnight shows up in Bond's room in a nightie, and before they can go any further, Andrea Anders tries to sneak in to warn Bond he's in danger. Goodnight listens from under the blankets as Anders tells Bond she's too afraid to leave Scaramanga, and that she sent the golden bullet to London with his number on it to warn him. She says she'll pay to have Scaramanga and even offers herself. When she tries to kiss him, he asks for the Solex, and she retreats to the shower. Bond hides Goodnight in the closet and prepares to sleep with Anders, telling her it was an inspiration, her sending that bullet. They make love as Goodnight spends 2 hours in the closet. After Anders leaves, Bond wakes Goodnight, who is rightfully mad, and promises he will have her when the adventure is done. I only put in the note about the inspiration because that's the exact same line that George Lazenby uses in On Her Majesty's Secret Service when he seduces two of Blofeld's beauties. He's like, oh, it was an inspiration, you know. And I love, even though this is not, I mean, Maybaum, yes, Mankiewicz, no, in terms of writers, like I like that little bit of continuity is something, had I not done this show, I never would have thought of before.
Something I find a bit irritating about this, though, is, and it goes back to, you know, the scene, the water pistol thing, and that bit. She could have actually avoided having her arm twisted in the first place, couldn't she? Because I think, you know, she Scaramanga, she knows who 007 is. Scaramanga's got a Madame Two Swords in his man cave. So,
yes,
you know,
yeah.
She could just say, oh, it's James Bond. I sent the bullet.
That's so goofy.
She is weirdly the most knowledgeable. Her and Scaramanga actually are maybe the most knowledgeable people in this entire movie, because even MI6 has no idea what Scaramanga looks like. And so I just think it's really funny that, yeah, you're right. She could have avoided almost all of this altogether by just being like, oh, hey, you're in my room. I'm the one who sent the bullet. Why don't you go kill him now?
Like imagine when Scaramanga received the statue, the wax model of James Bond. She'd say, who's that? It doesn't matter.
Doesn't exactly.
Yeah.
I don't it's somebody.
Oh boy. This is actually kind of fun. Bond, Hip, and Goodnight attend a boxing match. Bond sits next to Anders in an attempt to get the Solex he is hoping she stole for him, but sees she is frozen dead, having been shot through the heart. Scaramanga sits next to Bond as he searches Anders' purse. Scaramanga reveals who he is, and that Knick-Knack has a gun on him. Scaramanga monologues about his youth in the circus when Bond notices the Solex on the ground, and he is able to get it to Lieutenant Hip, who is disguised as a peanut vendor. Love this little part. Hip gets the Solex to Goodnight and goes back to help James as Scaramanga continues monologuing none the wiser. Scaramanga and Knick-Knack leave, and Goodnight decides to follow Knick-Knack outside. She follows him to a car, and while trying to place a tracker in the trunk, is pushed into it and trapped by Scaramanga. Women are dumb, by the way. I just have to say, my gender, we really failed this one. That's what happens when men write women.
Thank you for saying it, because it's what men have been thinking forever, clearly.
Thank you.
But
I can confirm.
like it is Michael, you've not had the opportunity to listen to our last couple episodes because they're not out yet. But our guest, David, 2 episodes ago brought up that this is the third part in a bikini trilogy, which is as soon as you put the Bond girl in a bikini, she becomes instantly dumber. I would say Mary Goodnight is written in a way in which she was already dumb before she got into the bikini, but it's sort of like I feel bad for Britt Eklund, especially because she saw Honey Rider in Dr. No and was like, I want to be that. I want to be this tough woman who carries a knife. And admittedly, Honey Rider's not the pinnacle of the Bond woman because she still ends up in a trap. But they cast her and then they write her this role, and all Mary Goodnight does is fuck up throughout the entire movie. There is one more thing I did want to say before we move on. Andrea Anders, how long has she been dead? And
how long? She's still sitting up.
Yeah, she's clearly going through rigor mortis because she's stiff, I guess.
Okay, Alyssa Edwards.
Yeah, I know. I almost said rigor mortis. Rigor mortis. And also, was she like holding the Solex at the time and threw it? Like, why was it on the floor? Like, there's too many. I am left with. And I'm not trying to be nitpicky, but I'm left with too many questions about this entire scene that I'm like, why did we go through all of this?
Because Scaramanga says, oh, I checked her purse beforehand and everything, but it's like, if it's just laying there on the ground, I feel like between him and Knick Knack, they could have like done some exploring. They know things can fall out of purses, right?
Right.
This ain't Mary Poppins' bag.
Bond steals a car from a local dealership, one that Sheriff Pepper just happens to be checking out, which is a perfectly normal vacation behavior thing. I always test drive cars on my vacation.
Yep.
What is happening here? And gives them chase. As the chase leads out of the city and into more rural Thailand, Bond thinks he has lost Scaramanga, but spots him across the river. Seeing that the only way across is a broken bridge in the shape of a corkscrew, he speeds over it, flipping the car 360 and ending up across the river, and Pepper ends up in the backseat. Scaramanga makes it to a garage where the car is fitted with a pair of airplane wings, just in time for Bond and a group of Thai policemen to watch the car fly away. The police arrest Pepper, and Goodnight finally gets the trunk open, only to realize she's in the air, and she retreats back into the safety of the boot. I think I got that correct. I'm pretty sure that's what British people call trunks.
Correct, yes.
Yeah, look at me. Years of watching Doctor Who have paid off.
Yes, we did it. But no, I will say the most accurate thing in this film is a white man in a foreign country jumping out of a car, acting like a sheriff, and trying to take control of the situation. And I am so glad those people did not have time for him. And they just immediately arrest him and ignore him. That is how it should be. That is how, just in general, in the climate of life, like if a white man is shouting and trying to be bossy, just ignore him and citizens arrest, if anything.
And honestly, spoiler alert, Chels, this is Sheriff Pepper's last James Bond movie, thank God. And so it is safe to assume.
No.
I know. Don't seem too upset. And it's safe to assume that he just spent the rest of his life in a Thai prison.
Which I love that for him. You know, it's like a permanent vacation from freedom, and couldn't have happened to a worse man.
Yeah, true.
Sheriff J.W. Pepper, Louisiana State Police. Here's my identification. This is Law Enforcement Association, American Legion. Me and my partner here. We're on a secret mission. Hey, what the hell you doing? Hey, give me my wallet back.
My one note is like, just Thailand in general. Like, Thailand is where people go on, like, The Bachelor as, like, one of the final 4, like, destinations. It's gonna be beautiful. I feel like they could have shot it a little bit better. The cinematography was lacking, and I don't know if Mr. Fiddler on the Roof was shooting this, because that's, like, a pretty movie. Maybe he's not meant to shoot car chases. Maybe he's meant to shoot musicals. Because I just don't think it captured any of the beauty of Thailand at all.
This is just me riffing because I truly don't know which portion of who of the 2 cinematographers did what.
Yeah, I'm wondering.
But it is shot almost in the way that they shot Louisiana in Live and Let Die.
Yeah.
And I think that it doesn't work because of that. I think if there was like something to make it seem more, it's like too familiar. It just doesn't, it's not exciting. And yeah, I think that's, I don't know. And like I said, when we did our Live and Let Die episode, that's where Live and Let Die loses me, is the so much of the Louisiana chase. It just goes on and on and on. And this like doesn't have the same issue as that, but it does look very similar.
Yeah, like the actual car chase itself and some of like the stunt work I love, especially the stunt. But this is indistinguishable from like Louisiana or Mississippi or Alabama. Like I've been to
Yeah.
these places. Like, no, it doesn't look like Thailand. Bond and Hip update M, and Q tells him that a flying car is perfectly reasonable.
So if I heard correctly, Scaramanga got away.
Yes, sir.
A car that sprouted wings.
Oh, that's perfectly feasible, sir. As a matter of fact, we're working on one now.
Oh, Q, shut up.
So good.
They pinpoint Goodnight to a series of islands in Chinese territory, and Bond flies there as this mission has to be unofficial and off the books now. Of course, the Chinese immediately inform Scaramanga that Bond is headed his way. I love M and Q so much in this
I
movie.
know.
They're just so done.
They they love each other in their own way, but I do think as you go through the films, M, until Bernard Lee can no longer do the role, it is a portrait of a man who is just getting more and more sick of his job.
They are literally, M and Q are the I've had it podcast hosts at this point. They've just
Yes.
totally had it.
And I do love that Q volunteers that. He's like, "Oh, a flying car, it's perfectly reasonable." I'm just like,
Yeah.
"Shut up."
We've been working on for years.
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of thing. One thing I would say here, I think I was mentioning it earlier about the Bond flying his seaplane through the bay. I also think that this is the standout piece of music of the whole
Yes.
film.
Yeah, the music here is particularly gorgeous. You're correct about that. Yeah. Once again, like I think it's a testament to John Barry, not that I also love John Barry, and I grew up with John Barry's music because of the James Bond films. So I have a tendency not to necessarily say anything bad about him or his music, but I will say like it's such a testament to him as a good musician, is that like this is what he can do in 3 weeks only. And so, and admittedly, like, once again, it's
3 weeks.
I know 3 weeks. It's like his 7th film or his 8th film, I think, because I think at this point, the only one he hadn't done was Live and Let Die. And so he kind of knows what they're looking for. Like, it's not like he's a new guy coming in, but I don't know. I love it. Yeah, you're right. Bond lands on the island and is immediately greeted by Nick Nack with champagne, as an unseen Scaramanga shoots the cork out of the bottle. Scaramanga seems genuinely happy to see Bond as he welcomes him into his home built into the rocks of the island. He shows off a massive power plant that runs his home, including a solar energy station that is fully automated, which just feels like a cost-saving budget decision. Scaramanga is planning on holding the technology essentially for ransom, so the world will have to pay him for their energy, or the oil companies will have to pay to keep it off the market. He also demonstrates that he uses the island's offshoots as solar collectors, and that allows him to use the solar radiation focused into solar lasers, which he uses to blow up Bond's plane, his only means of escape. Just then, Nick Nack rings that lunch is ready.
Lasers.
I think an empty power plant is a very funny comment on You Only Live Twice, which is a volcano base filled with hundreds of extras. And in this movie, they're like, Scaramanga has one guy running it and is just like, oh yeah, fully automated, whatever.
Honestly, after the events of Live and Let Die, they were like, too many mistakes with all these people working here. We're going to automate this. We are going to decline. This is what is it, Jeff Bezos of it all popping off right now. AI, baby.
Also, solar lasers, very fun. Very like, This is our second space laser, so a bit after Diamonds Are Forever. And let me tell
I
you,
love me a laser.
yeah, this is not our last space laser.
Oh, can't wait. Mary Goodnight joins them, now bikini clad, and tries to communicate with Bond in a stilted manner. Scaramanga comments that outside of the fact that his profession has made him rich, he and Bond are the same, to which Bond responds, "There's a useful 4-letter word, and you're full of it."
You live well, Scaramanga.
At $1 million a contract, I can afford to, Mr. Bond. You work for peanuts. A hearty well done from Her Majesty the Queen and a pittance of a pension. Apart from that, we are the same. To us, Mr. Bond, we are the best.
There's a useful 4-letter word, and you're full of it.
Bond says he only kills under orders and only kills killers. Sure. Bond goes to reach for his gun, but Scaramanga has somehow super quickly put his golden gun together and says killing Bond will be his masterpiece. He challenges Bond to a duel, and Bond agrees, but only after lunch. That is
Yes.
Chelsea behavior.
Yeah.
It's like, fine, let's go kill each other, but let me eat lunch first.
Exactly. You duel on a full stomach. Bond and Scaramanga stand back to back on the beach as Knick-Knack explains the rules of the duel. They each walk 20 paces, but Scaramanga is gone. Goodnight is menaced by Scaramanga's maintenance man as Bond searches the island for Scaramanga. Knick-Knack tells Bond if he kills Scaramanga, the island and the solar plant will be his. Once again, not how this works. And pretending to help Bond leads him to the funhouse from the cold open. Knick-Knack then hurries to his control room so he can watch the real duel play out.
Once again, love this idea. Wish it had been a little bit more elaborate, the production design.
Yeah. Well, even the I mentioned at the front, Scaramanga has these 2 waiting rooms, these 2 different waiting rooms before you even go into the funhouse. You can't tell them apart. That's bad production design. There should be something to make it be
At least change the wall color or
Yeah.
something like dramatically.
And this base could be so cool, and it's just
Yeah.
not. But whatever.
Yeah. Bond falls for fake out after fake out, wasting 3 of his 6 bullets. He then finds a way into the scaffolding of the funhouse, out of sight of Knick-Knack's cameras, only to drop his gun along the way. Babes. Scaramanga searches for Bond, walking right past the wax Bond statue, who shoots him right in the heart. That's right. Bond has had enough time to make it out of the scaffolding, steal the wax figure, dress in its tux, and pose before the cameras or Scaramanga spot him. Bond wins the duel, and Mary Goodnight attacks the maintenance man, knocking him into the freezing chemicals and killing him. Good for her, because he was full on just like groping and assaulting her.
No, he was real bad. And that's like her one big shining moment in this movie is killing that man. And then of course it is used against her in a moment. But
Yep.
The Bond Scaramanga duel, the only reason I wrote it that way is because apparently it was much longer originally. There was a whole sequence of like showing that like Scaramanga actually doesn't only use 1 bullet because he's kind of a coward. Like he has extra bullets hidden in his belt and whatnot. And they cut it because they just wanted to save time. And to me, that's hilarious because there's so many other places you could trim this movie. Like the ending should be big, but it's literally just like Bond just kills Scaramanga almost immediately.
Okay, you say this. You explained to me all of this, and I was about to comment that I wish that this had been longer.
Yeah.
What might have been? I need to check for deleted scenes on my box set.
It's very sort of unspectacular, isn't it, compared to like pretty much all of the other deaths of villains that go before and after. It's just sort of shot quite quickly, not flushed into outer space. Or
And he's a pretty good villain. I really like him.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, that's exactly what you were just saying, Chels, is like, I think Christopher Lee is so good and such a presence that like, it sucks to just dispatch of him so quickly and in such a kind of uninteresting way. This movie has many flaws, and that's just...
Maybe he would have been better off going into the liquid nitrogen or something.
Yeah.
You
Bond and Goodnight reunite, and he congratulates her on her murder. However, the man's body temperature raises the temp of the helium in the power plant, and giving them little time to escape before the power plant will explode. Bond tries to freeze the Solex from Scaramanga's machine as, and I am not kidding, Goodnight activates the solar laser using just her ass. Bond tries to instruct her how to turn off the beam, and she thinks it has worked because the sun goes behind a cloud, also not how solar energy works, stopping the beam. However, when the sun comes back out, it starts again just in time for Bond to free the Solex. This entire sequence, I know it's played for a laugh, but it's just like, come on, guys. Like, she literally pushes the button with her butt.
Have you never done that? I did. You know. I don't know what it's like in America, but here we have like little bells on the buses for when you want to get off, and I've done that before, like accidentally.
That's
not
funny.
Just yeah.
We do
it's a similar thing.
we do have bells on the bus, but I've never hit one with my posterior.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you're not trying hard enough, Gavin.
Exactly.
There's low ones for people in wheelchairs, you see. So
okay.
They're particularly susceptible.
That's really funny. Yeah, so it's just placement. I was gonna say it's not like I have a tiny ass either. So like for all of you out there, I know I'm just a voice on the radio, but I'm a pretty backside too.
Goodnight, though, she does not have a big backside.
No, she's a thin Swedish model.
Yes, she's very thin. She makes me look bigger. And I'm tiny, y'all. Bond and Goodnight flee to Scaramanga's boat and set sail as the island explodes, of course. Then they, you guessed it, start to do Bond's favorite thing and make love on a boat. The biggest recurring gag in this series is making love on a boat at the end of the movie. However, no one checked on Knick-Knack, who has snuck aboard and attempts to kill them from above with a knife. He fails and then proceeds to throw so many bottles of wine at Bond in defense, but Bond traps him in a suitcase. Dear God.
The suitcase, bad. I will say, it does feel like 40 bottles of wine. It feels like
Good
so many
for
bottles
him.
of wine.
Use your resources, I guess.
Bottle of wine after bottle of wine. It's quite impressive.
I was gonna say, it seems a little too sloppy for Knick-Knack, though. He seems usually to have a little more control.
He seems pretty put together.
Did he get dumb too whenever he saw a woman in a bikini?
Yes. The only thing I wanted to add to this was they basically only had 1 or 2 takes to do the exploding nuclear plant, and so she didn't know, like, you have to hurry, you have to keep ahead of these explosions. And so Roger Moore literally had to like pull her and move her out of the way of some of the explosions because she was just too close to them at points. And he said, like, as he moved her, he could smell her hair burning as the like would catch some of these explosions. And so yeah, like I know
they're not a stunt coordinator.
And there but there's also accidents happen, and that's what I will say, like, people act like actors have the easiest job in the world. They do occasionally get put into situations that are very dangerous, and that luckily, like, Roger Moore was a very seasoned actor. He'd done The Saint before this. He'd done Ivanhoe. He'd done The Alaskans. Like, he'd been around stunts before. And I just can't imagine him being like, oh shit, my leading lady's gonna die. I need to get her out of the way. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, hairspray is so flammable. I bet they weren't even thinking about that. Oh my gosh.
That's where I'm getting. Bond goes back to making out with Goodnight when M interrupts them with a phone call. However, Bond lets him listen in as the two moan in pleasure. The film ends with Knick-Knack in a cage, hoisted up among the sails as the boat sails itself back to Hong Kong to a slower version of Lulu's The Man with the Golden Gun. We are then told James Bond will return in The Spy Who Loved Me. But knowing what we know about production, will he?
Who's to say?
Except for the last, 20 years of, or not 20, last, 50 years of history. Wow. The 90s were only a decade.
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. The 90s were only a decade ago, guys.
Yeah, that was last week.
Feels like it.
It truly does. We've reached the end of The Man with the Golden Gun, but there are a couple things I do want to get to before we wrap up this finally. Just some final thoughts. First of all, the Bond women, not even going to include Chumi because she only has one scene. Mary Goodnight, Andrea Anders. I think Andrea Anders is, until you pointed it out, Michael, the superior Bond woman in this movie. even though she's given very little to do. I think Mary Goodnight is unfortunately kind of a waste. And like, I don't even have anything against Britt Eklund, but
No, she's innocent. They did not write
yeah.
a person.
Maud Adams does return, as I mentioned before, Chels, not for another couple movies, but Roger Moore has gone on record saying Maud Adams was his favorite Bond woman, and he just genuinely loved working with her. So I think that's probably why she
Aw.
gets to come back.
Love that.
Yeah. How do you feel about either of our leading ladies, Michael?
In both this and Octopussy, I think Maud Adams does a great job, actually. I think she's, and very much the sort of stronger female character, isn't she, rather than as opposed to Goodnight. But I think Britt Eklund, her performance is fine, isn't it? And she does a good job. I know it's a bit silly, and she plays the sort of the sort of typical person that they're trying to write. But it's and both of them are very beautiful, of course.
I will say, I did enjoy Maud Adams a lot. I thought she did a great job with what she was given. And the whole movie I spent, why do I recognize her? I love that she was in that 70s show episode as a bridesmaid with Tanya Roberts, future Bond girlie. And apparently there's other Bond girlies
Amazing.
in that as bridesmaids. I'm like, good for them. That is a gang I would want to join.
I will say this. That 70 shows episodes, a lot of them have aged worse than James Bond films. So do not go back and watch them.
No, I
But-
refuse to. Every
Yeah.
person that cast is a red flag except for maybe one person.
Yeah, exactly. In terms of our villains, Scaramanga, Knick-Knack, and High Fat is also kind of throwaway. Scaramanga, I genuinely love. There is, normally we try and find a queer reading for these. I don't get queerness from any of the women. I don't get queerness from any of the bad guys. If anything, Scaramanga has like a very dangerous sexuality to him. And I think that's the only thing that keeps Andrea Anders with him, even though she is genuinely afraid of him. I think there's something sexy in his like complete lack of care for human life. And I think had they continued down the road that Tom Mankiewicz set up of like him being the direct opposite of James Bond, him being a little smoother, maybe him being a little more womanizery, that would have been maybe a little more interesting. But I really love Christopher Lee's performance in this movie, and I think he gives a lot for what he's, because I think you see it a tiny bit at the end when he's like genuinely happy to see Bond on his island. He's like, welcome, good to see you. I'm gonna kill you in a little bit, but hey, let's have a good time beforehand.
Come, Mr. Bond, you disappoint me. You get as much fulfillment out of killing as I do, so why didn't you admit it?
I admit killing you would be a pleasure.
You should have done that when you first saw me. But then, of course, the English don't consider it sporting to kill in cold blood, do they?
Don't count on that.
Yeah, no, I think there's probably 6 or 7 redeeming features of the movie, and I think Christopher Lee's performance is absolutely one of them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
hands down, I think he's brilliant. Probably the best performer in the movie. And maybe one of my favorite Bond villains so far, because I'm going to remember him and everything and just be like, I need a movie about him just criming and doing crazy stuff. Like, good for him. Maybe he should have won, except Roger Moore's so pretty. Don't kill him.
and Knick-Knack's fun, but he is no Harold Sakata as Oddjob, and I just yeah,
He's a good villain. He's efficient until the last act.
yeah, and he's the one who gets closest to killing James Bond in this movie until someone's like, don't do that. So I'll give him that. And then in terms of gadgets, we have a flying car. We have a solar laser. We have the titular golden gun. And speaking of titular, we also have a fake nipple. So
that's the best one, I think.
Yeah. I 100% agree. If you need the Q division to get you a gadget in a bind, a fruit roll up of fake nipples is where it's at.
Yeah.
Wait, Gavin, should we make merch and have just a roll of stickers that's fake nipples?
Yes, 100%. With just the Q division across the bottom. Just
listen, I can do this.
We get that, and we get, like you said, little hats that say "Really 007?" ? And then the Q division.
Oh my gosh, yes. Careful. I know an embroiderer.
I'm pretty sure Eon would sue us, but that's okay. That's I do love the
Fan
golden.
art, come for me.
Exactly. I do love the golden gun. I truly do love the golden gun. I think it's very cool.
It's so
but
cool.
but I will say at the end, like there's a cutaway of, as an editor, this is like an editing thing that will only kill an editor. You see him like start to put the gun together when he's at lunch with Bond at the end of the movie, after you've already seen him do it earlier in the movie. So you know it takes time. And Bond pulls his gun, and suddenly Scaramanga already has his golden gun put together. And it's like, no, like the time dilation doesn't make any sense.
It's like, did they cut an entire scene of dialogue to make the time make sense? Or were they just like, we gotta get wrapping up. We have to keep in all of the weird, I guess, dojo, whatever kung fu they're attempting.
Yeah.
But we gotta, like, the actual story, no time for that.
Yeah, it's wild. And then solar lasers, flying cars.
I love a laser.
Perfectly acceptable flying car. We've been working on it for ages.
Yeah.
And then just as a bonus thing, and I have not done this before, but once again, it's because I think Moore's era is really when they decided that they could start dressing Bond in different sort of things. There is no costume designer listed on this movie. However, we do have, it's kind of the same way in the next movie too. We do have Roger Moore's tailor, who is Cyril Castle, and the wardrobe supervisor, who is Elsa Fennell. And I've just put in a selection of the outfits he wears in this movie. I think my favorite, which was the one that you hated, Michael?
I really hate the one in M's office, the double-breasted pinstripe thing.
It's a lot. It's a lot of look. It's this one at the like top left on the bottom one, right? This like gray.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes him too blocky. It's like Bond doesn't have like that sort of shape. I think my favorite is something Sean Connery never would have worn, which is the crazy safari outfit that is just too over.
Yes,
that when he wears to Macau, he looks so fucking classy, but also so casual. It's such a good look on Roger Moore.
Yeah, the tuxedo's quite good as well, I think.
Oh, the tuxedo. And I do want to point out that this is the first time Roger Moore wears that white dinner jacket for his tuxedo, which was like Sean Connery staples, starting with Goldfinger. And I think that they maybe resisted him doing that in Live and Let Die because they didn't want the Connery comparisons. But I think he just brings such a different flavor to it because he's a different person.
Yeah.
He's different, and I think he's more beautiful.
Yeah, I thought also, I'll be honest, I suppose it's because of the fashions of the time, but I do think the bow tie is massive, though.
Yes. Oh, huge.
Huge. Yeah.
This
it's a lot bigger than his face, isn't it?
I mean, the next movie's big invention, and we'll get to it there, is the flared pants. Because he starts wearing flared pants after this, and it's just like, whoa, Bond, calm down.
Listen, he got a hold of that ABBA album and was like, you know what, we're digging in.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
do love that I am just looking at all of these, and then I look at the bad outfit, and I'm like, they really should have taken the jacket in at the waist a little bit more for his shape. I do think he looks fabulous in all of these. My favorite might be the white tux. I think he rocks it in a way that maybe
good.
Sean Connery didn't. That might be controversial to say. Am I starting a war on here?
I think also, like, once again, the different, like, you're talking about the pinstripe suit should have been taken in, and I think that it is taken in the tux, and I think that's what makes the tux work. And the difference between that and a 60s cut is that they didn't really do, like, it was more linear.
Yeah.
And Connery just didn't have, like, Connery was more of a, I don't want to just say straight, but it is a straight line. and Roger Moore actually does.
He is like a straight line, his actual shape of his body.
Yeah. Anyways, I just think it's fun.
Roger Moore, I'm just having fun just staring at him right now. Gavin, we need more slideshows. I famously brought a slideshow to another Glitterjaw show that I was a guest on, so I approve.
I love just looking at the fashions, and specifically like I think normally the villains get to be the more fashionable people, not fashionable, but like get the more variety of outfits, and it's specifically the women, obviously. But I just like that Roger Moore has been allowed to play, because I think the other James Bonds don't really get. I think maybe Craig gets to do a little bit more of that, but he's our like very Tom Ford masculine, like
Yeah, I always think they're too small for him.
yes, yeah. Well, I think that's
But-
also Tom Ford's a big homo like us, so
Yeah.
he's like,
What? A homosexual?
I know, cinching him in, getting him in. Anyways, I think that's case closed. The Man with a Golden Gun. Thank you so much for joining us, Michael.
Thank you.
Please tell our agents where they can find you online and what you're doing in the future.
Okay, I suppose the best place is on Instagram, where I'm MikeBarker.me. That's .me spelled D-O-T rather than an actual dot, confusingly. But that's the best place, I think.
Awesome, amazing. But yeah, and do you have anything coming down the pipeline? This episode will be out in September. Do you have anything to plug?
Well, I've got a couple of sort of short films about to embark on their festival runs. One's called Plastic Surgery with Anna Popplewell in the lead role, and another one is the Eremos trilogy, which was a 95% deaf crew. So that's and it's a really interesting sort of anthology of 3 short films within a short film. And yeah, for the rest of the year, I've got a few little TV projects coming up, and hopefully a feature at some point.
That's very
It's not
cool.
confirmed yet.
Very
Awesome.
cool. Interested to see those.
Absolutely. With that, it's case closed on The Man with the Golden Gun. Thank you for listening to the Q Division. If you'd like to listen to our previous episodes, we are available wherever you listen to podcasts. Please make sure to rate and review our show while you're there. You can also find us on Blue Sky and Instagram at QDivisionPod on both, or you can email us at qdivisionpod@gmail.com. Chels, remind the agents where they can find you.
I am Chels725 on the Blue Sky, Serialized, which is TV Letterboxd. I'm also on And a Rewatch Pod, where I talk about all kinds of television. I have a list down here, and I'm like, no, there's just too much of it. And I got some fun things planned ahead in the future. And then I was just on the fear-coded Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. I say just on it. This comes out in September, and it's Pride Month. So both me and Gavin made Pride appearances on a scary show, and I love that for us. It was very gay. And then, of course, my friend Kevin's podcast and the runner-up is I always have to plug my episodes because I have the best time with Kevin talking about actresses and so many bonus episodes. And then here at Glitterjaw, I was also on Gimmicks for Dr. Marlena Evans' Devil Possession, and the Skryonk for Shin Godzilla. So everyone go listen to those. And if I was on something else, I don't remember. Oh, wait, no, I do remember. Female Gaze, the Film Club, which me and Gavin have both been on. And Gavin, your Debs episode is officially my favorite episode of the show.
Oh, stop. Yeah, I was just on, as of June, Female Gaze Film Club podcast, talking about Debs, which is another spy movie. So I recommend all the agents rush out and listen to that episode. And yeah, a lot. I've also been on a lot of those shows. Too many to plug. And obviously I hate the limelight since I just made you listen to my voice for 2 hours. But if you want to find me elsewhere online, you can find my declassified account at It's Gavin. That's SHHITSGAVIN on Blue Sky. And you can find me on Instagram at @GavinMev. You can also find my other long-running film podcasts at The Mixed Reviews on any podcast platform, co-hosted by my good friend Louis Rendon. To find more information about The Mixed Reviews, please visit glitterjaw.com/mixed-reviews. Until next time, we hope to have left you shaken, not stirred.
Who will he bang? We shall see. Love is required whenever he's hired. It comes just before the kill. No one can catch him, no hitman can match him for his $1 million skill. One golden shot means another poor victim has come to a glittering end. If you want want to get rich.